I'm gonna let you kick it off here after Melissa.
Okay.
Sure, yeah. Good morning, everyone. I'm Melissa Schick, the incoming president for the Florida Brownfields Association. I am here this morning to assist with housekeeping issues, and if anybody has any technical issues, I will begin the recording. Actually, I just started it, so we are recording the session like we are the others. If you don't want to be on camera, just go ahead and turn off your camera now. This session is how to eat an elephant. I will actually keep everybody muted. So if you need to speak, just go ahead and unmute yourself during the session. And also questions, comments, anything, please use the chat feature. We really like the interaction and feedback. So I will kick it off to Olga next.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good to see you. I hope everyone got enough rest last night. I'm Olga Perry. I'm a Brownfield project manager with Region 4. I'm here to introduce the presenters. However, before we move forward, please know that if you have questions, please put them in the chat box, but leave your computer on mute unless otherwise asked to unmute. Okay, let's get started. Let's start with Trey Hess. Trey is the director of Brownfields and Trey is the director of Brownfields and economic development for PPM Consultants. Prior to joining PPM, he was the section chief of the Groundwater Assessment and Remediation Division for the Mississippi Department of Environmental Quality, MDEQ, also known as, where he managed the state of Mississippi's cleanup program. The program included the assessment and cleanup of Superfund sites, leaky underground storage tanks, brownfield sites, and voluntary and regulatory enforcement cleanup. Trey, I think you gave me a hard time. You've been giving me a hard time for a long time. So that's what happened, I'm sure. Okay, next, Elizabeth Wilson. She is the executive director of the Meridian Museum. Liz is a native of Meridian who, like many Mississippians, has come to realize that all roads lead home. In 2014, she returned home after a stint in Birmingham, Alabama. Yay, I'm from Birmingham. And Los Angeles, California. As the mother of 3 small children, she recognized the desperate need for engaging imaginative play for the children of East Mississippi. She joined with 2 other concerned citizens and started a journey for finding resources for the state's largest cultural early education institution in Mississippi. It's known as the Meridian Children's Museum. Next, we have Chris Lafferty. He is the county administrator for Lauderdale County, Mississippi. Chris has championed the brownfield and concrete brick recycling cleanup of the former Sears, Firestone, and Village Fair Mall project in Meridian. He has practical knowledge of federal, state procurement, and environmental requirements and the administration of grant-funded programs. In addition to his 20 years of military experience, he holds an MA in executive leadership from Liberty University. Next is Laura Lockhart. She is Snyder's Environmental General Manager of Oklahoma. Laura has over 12 years of experience in the construction industry. She has a degree in construction management from Pittsburgh State University. Her focus and drive have quickly accelerated her career to be one of the top estimators in the Midwest, and she was Snyder's primary point of contact on the asbestos abatement and demolition of the former Village Fair Mall in Meridian. Next is Mr. Primus Willer Jr. He is the Executive Director of the Jackson Medical Mall Foundation in Jackson, Mississippi. The foundation manages the Jackson Medical Mall facility. The facility is a one-of-a-kind comprehensive healthcare facility providing human, cultural, and healthcare services to more than 200,000 clients per year. Through strategic partnerships with UMMC, Jackson State University, and Tougaloo College, the Jackson Medical Mall was transformed from an abandoned shopping mall to a modern medical and retail facility that Mr. Wheeler now directs. Now I'm going to turn the project over to, or the presentation over to, Trey Hess. Let me also remind you, please don't forget, if you have questions, don't hold them in, put them in the chat box. We will answer your question as time permits. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Olga. And so since you gave a shout out to Birmingham, I'm gonna have to give a shout out to my hometown, which is Meridian, but also my adopted hometown. I've been in Ridgeland in the Jackson metro area now for 25 years. So it's a privilege for me to sort of be the technical liaison, and let's just all keep our fingers crossed that this how to eat an elephant. My elephant today is going to be making sure that Zoom works. And I think we've got a great panel here to talk to you a little bit about their projects they've been working on. And with that, obviously we're talking about old malls, some of them existing, some of them repurposed. And then certainly if you have questions, please pop them up and we'll try to answer them. If we don't answer them during the session, then we will get to them at the end. We're first going to start and talk a little bit about the what I'll consider to be the corridor into Meridian, Mississippi, the gateway. That's 22nd Avenue corridor. And this is just, if you can visualize, Meridian is halfway between Jackson, Mississippi and Birmingham on I-20. And it's the last stop, big metro area before you get into Alabama, and the first one you come into from Alabama. And the area we're talking about is 22nd Avenue corridor, which is the gateway into Meridian. And for a time there, it was really the hub of retail developments during that area. We've got two properties here, two former malls, two former buildings that through some strategic planning and some working together into eating a couple of elephants together, because sometimes it's not just your own thing. You'll find that leveraging and partnerships, and this goes even for what Primus is doing over at the Jackson Medical Mall Foundation. A lot of work goes into these challenges that we have with old malls, and finding a way to repurpose them is not something you can do on your own. Brownfields is obviously a part of this. A lot of times people call an old mall or an old Walmart or something to that effect a Greyfield. Not necessarily a lot of contaminants other than we'll see some asbestos to deal with, but they still have their own challenges. And with retail struggling right now, it's one of those things where a lot of us need to really think about what the future of some of these buildings are. So this is the gateway in, and if you can follow down, this is coming off the interstate. And if you come off the interstate into here, this actually was where the old mall used to be. So it was right there off the frontage road coming into Meridian. As you go down this area, this is an old Fred's that's currently up for sale. This is an old bank. And look, Liz or Chris, if somebody's bought these, pop it off mute and go, hold on, we got something fancy schmancy kicking on. So we've also got the police station here. We have a housing project here, excuse me, a low affordable housing here. The Meridian Housing Authority is right over here. And then, of course, this is the old former Sears, and you can see that some things are happening that we'll talk about here shortly. As you cross the bridge into Meridian, there's the 3-foot building, and no, it's not 3 feet high, but it's in the process of being revitalized with new market tax credits. got a new brewery coming into town. John Purdy actually worked with us and through an EPA East Central Planning District grant. I heard yesterday that supposedly it's going to be open in April, maybe just about the time that we get COVID completely behind us. So I encourage everyone to come check out the new brewery there. So a lot's going on. A lot is going on in Meridian, and the first two properties here are part of that. One thing I want to point out is a lot of this keys back to brownfield grants for the former Sears, the East Central Planning District, which is the 6 to 8, I believe it's 8 counties, 9 counties actually around the area. They received a grant back in 2017 to do some assessment grant, and Meridian, Philadelphia, and Quitman, I guess, would really be the 3 target areas on that. So Meridian was involved in that. And Chris, when you get a chance, maybe talk a little bit about how that helped leverage some of the work that you guys did with Liz on the former Sears, as well as sort of teed it up for the next chapter of this, we hope. So we're at the former Sears. This is what it looks like. I'm going to come back to this lattice work here in just a little bit, let Liz talk some about that, but and a little bit more about that. But we got a call from the county saying, hey, and East Central did, we need an asbestos inspection because we're looking to do something there. And as you can see, there is some asbestos tile, some asbestos in some of the piping and the fireproofing, and primarily it was more of a demo project because it was just not really going to be conducive to what the big plans were for the site. One of the big things, and Chris, I think this comes into what you can talk a little bit about here in just a second, is leveraging. And if you'll notice here that there was an asbestos and lead-based paint inspection done back in 2018 with the grant, but notice here that, and I think, Chris, we might need to update this because some of the dollars that were leveraged associated with this, but look at all the leveraging that took place here. And Liz, you can talk more about the redevelopment side of things on this as well, and how just a simple asbestos inspection, some cost estimating, and work to get a contract together with a certified asbestos contractor, all those things, these little bites of this elephant turned into what we have today. So our first speaker here in the center, this is another redevelopment that is going on in this. This is Chris Lafferty and a couple of the supervisors for the Board of Supervisors for Lauderdale County, Mississippi. Chris, this is at one of the premieres for one of the new developments in town. And so with that, Chris, if you could maybe talk a little bit about, and we'll come back and talk more about some of the other ones, could you maybe talk a little bit about in-kind expenses? Because I think some of our folks in the audience have to, for different cleanup grants, have to identify how to come up with some in-kind expenses, and maybe just walk through this just a little bit, and then we'll to show how you identified that, and then I'll ask you a couple of questions about it, because I do think this is an important piece to any match funding you might need to have.
Sure. Thank you, Trey. The great thing about the brownfield grants is it definitely allows you the opportunity to do a lot of in-kind work and leverage those dollars to maximize your total project. Thankfully, this project was done during a time where a lot of our road crew could be easily redirected to that project. You know, some of our paving guys for the demolition and things like that. And you see over to the right-hand side of your screen there, some of the personnel side of it. But the leverage allowed us to not only save the local taxpayers money, but it also helped the Children's Museum and Liz and those guys maximize their dollars as well, because in the end, somebody would have to come up with this money. And through the Brownfield grant, through getting the asbestos abatement, through it being abated, our folks tearing it down, it's even to this day, it's paying dividends, because all of the concrete and a lot of the usable products. Obviously, the steel was recycled as much as we possibly could, but we have the parking lot, anything that's concrete and that was salvageable, it is across the 22nd Avenue onto our Village Fair Mall property that will be ground up and used into a usable product from there as well. So you see our equipment expenses, $164,640. That's phenomenal with what you can do. I mean, in the end, we saved enough to almost buy a track hoe if you look at real dollars. And then our personnel piece there saved us all a ton of money. So it is definitely a great thing to be able to use about $210,000 in in-kind work. And we definitely appreciate Liz and her leadership, having the confidence and the ability to work around some of our time schedules. But I think in the end, we can all agree that leveraging those dollars was the best thing for the grant, for the community, for the taxpayers, for the state of Mississippi, and the list goes on and on.
So let me ask you this, Chris. So it looks to me, so what I've done here is Chris was gracious enough to share with me this was probably an Excel spreadsheet, right? That you had together. And so you had different tabs. You had one tab for personnel. You can see 46,000. So it was, added up here. So in terms of the rate, because I think some of the biggest challenges that some folks have with in-kind services what did you use for rate for let's just say Joe here? I mean, what was that rate associated with?
So we're pretty simple. We try to use a common formula across the board for everything that we do, and we just use the FEMA rates because we already have that in our spreadsheet. We already have that calculated out, and it's just a common operating language. So everything that we do is calculated off of the FEMA rate.
So same thing here, I guess. So flipping over to the in-kind equipment, $164,000, $164,000. So the FEMA codes, I mean, this is all, if you had a disaster response reimbursement program, then this is probably a good template to use because it's been vetted. And I guess they have a guidebook on the different FEMA codes on that.
Right. Well, the thing is, what's important to us in the world that we live in is anything that we do, is it defendable and is it reasonable? And by using a common operating language as FEMA codes, that would hold up against any scrutiny, because across the country, that's a common operating language.
Okay. Well, that's a good thing to know. And of course, from there, thank you, Chris. We'll come back and talk more about the next big elephant bite that took place. But from there, this is actually a portion of the demolition of this of the Sears. So county workers, you kept up with their time, what days they were there, tracked all that information, had it all available, and was able to, again, show some leverage resources from just a small assessment grant. So fast forward, I believe this was maybe December of 18. A lot of this took place. There was a lot of email traffic between me and Chris and East Central Planning District and Liz on, and one good thing about deadlines and people who press, Liz was ready to get going. She had some things happening. And so Liz, actually from there, let me let her take over for just a second. And I'm gonna start, Liz, in just a second with with your video, but maybe give everybody just an idea of what the heck are you doing here? What is this?
I am standing upon those giant honeycombs that were across the front of the facade of the old Sears building. So that building was over 100,000 square feet and sat in a sea of asphalt.
Oh. Looks like Liz has gotten a little bit of the Zoom.
Trey, we might ask her if Liz to turn her camera off, and that will be less bandwidth. She might have better audio. So Liz, if you hear us, can you turn off your camera?
to be able to demo that building so that we could build something imaginable and magic, and also have a revitalization feel to it, because our architects have moved our building up close to the street, which really has a more inviting feel and adds also to the community. But so the county was able to salvage these honeycombs. They are enormous, and that we are actually going to be able to repurpose these in the design of the new building, which is under construction. These will be used in both our entry plaza, as well as we have a 25,000 square foot outdoor exhibit space. And these are being repurposed into a gross motor skill interactive for children.
Okay. So one thing, Liz, there was a moment there where you chopped up. So what, everybody's got your smiling face, but could you kick your video off and keep talking in just a second? I'm going to go ahead. I am a big proponent, folks, of rural, get that out, broadband. So, and I think everybody here could agree with that. So let's be sure we talk to our congressional delegations about that. So let me first start with talking a little bit about the Children's Museum, and everybody keep your fingers crossed for YouTube to work, and we'll go from there. All right. Well, so far so good. So hopefully we'll have the rest of these work like that as well. You know, the other thing is obviously just a little bit on the progression of the building of this. Actually, I believe back here, Liz, if I'm correct, is where the old building was. So everything, like you said, was pushed to the front. But this is a little video of some progress, and this was done this month, just to kind of give everybody a little bit of idea what's going on. Hold on, stop. All right, so you can see there's progress going on. Obviously, this was a project where there was demolition took place. Maybe Liz, talk a little bit more about you know, progress. And I've got a picture here of social media, some of the challenges maybe you ran up against. Y'all are really big into the social media piece, and obviously that has a lot to do with getting more leverage resources. So maybe a little bit more, Liz, that you've got on what's going on.
Sure. And so I will start, I'll just say that where we were in our project when we were able to partner with the county to demo this project was about a $13 million campaign. And this is the first satellite campus of the Mississippi Children's Museum, which is our state's leader in cultural early education. And so our fundraising was going along really well. And then we are, I'm sorry, I'm also seeing these comments post up. I apologize for pausing there. But we were kind of at a crossroads. And so in December of 2018, we had raised probably about 75% of our campaign total. And then with the help of the county, it revitalized and gave us that extra push to continue and go forward. And even beyond that, our project is now a $17 million project. And I don't know if anyone was able to pick up on the fact that we had an added piece to the building on the front there, an added auditorium. And these were made possible because with the demolition of the building and the site ready, and this to be a shovel-ready project, we were able to take advantage of another program, New Market Tax Credits. And so that enabled us to infuse our project with additional cash, as well as the renewed investment from our community in this project. We've got over 600 donors to this project. So our community, our state, our city, our region, and federal dollars also have all been driven to this project. And we are having a $25 million impact during our construction phase alone, with over 170 jobs during construction. And then once we're operational, which we will be opening our doors in March of 2021, once operational, we will have over almost a $3 million annual impact on the community economic investment, as well as combined we will create about 30 jobs, direct and indirect. But what we're looking at right here is those honeycombs that I talked about that we were able to repurpose and use in our garden. To your point, Trey, about social media and all of the nuances of doing a project. And I mean, we are a city, but we are a small community feel. And to be able to salvage these honeycombs and repurpose them and continue that link to history was an important piece to our community. And so it's been an additional joy, I guess I would say, and an additional benefit to our project to be able to not only have a clean site and a safe site for children. That is one of the most important things when we look at a site, is that it has to be environmentally safe. And so this demolition and abatement and all of those things that followed were instrumental to creating a successful facility for the long term.
So I believe the honeycombs, Brian, I think you were asking, I believe they're made out of steel, certainly not asbestos. But,
they are a concrete aggregate as well. They are, Chris, I don't know if you can remember how heavy they were, but when those backhoes started pulling them off the building, there was a little bit of a wobble. They're impressive.
So you've got a picture here, maybe give everybody an idea of who all's in the picture. I know you're there on the right.
We broke ground officially October the 28th of 2019, although we were already able to have initial prep on the site started in December of 18 and January of 19 with the county. And then we got a little bit of prep done starting in September. But then in October, we were able to officially to celebrate. And we've got our CEO from the institution in Jackson, Susan Gerard. We've got the lieutenant governor at the time, now the governor, Tate Reeves, there in the middle. And then Phil Hardin Foundation and the Riley Foundation are our signature donors. The two of them have collectively pledged $7 million to this project, which has been, they really got this project off the ground as well in the very early fundraising stages. And then, of course, we've got a lot of children there because it's for them. And then we've been on a campaign now to really celebrate everyone that's been a part of this, and the county being a really big piece of that. That's the county there on the left.
So, you know, key to this, at least from what I can tell, is you've focused on doing an online campaign, a lot of Facebook, a lot of, I mean, do y'all have a Twitter account as well?
We do.
Yeah. And so a lot of this going on, but also celebrating, you know, particular donors, little bundles of joy. Anytime you've had a business, you know, contribute to this, giving a little shout out to them. And then, of course, obviously in this case, you've got the Board of Supervisors here doing their thing. And so a lot of this, I guess, Liz, is leveraging from a variety of sources and being a nonprofit. And I'm certain that Mr. Wheeler can concur, getting local backing, getting individuals as well as businesses a part of this process, and everyone drinking the Kool-Aid, so to speak, is one way to really make this elephant something that can transform a community. So thank you, Liz. If you got any questions at the end, be sure to, you know, put it in the chat box. And then Liz is available. Again, go to their Facebook page, go to their website page, and take a look, do a little like, and check out the progress as this continues to go. The actual opening, I guess, Liz, is when do you think that the literal ribbon cutting walk through the front doors, hopefully, you know, given COVID, what do you think that looks like?
March of 2021.
All right. So March 2021, we all need to go to Meridian and drop some cash on it and go check this out. And then hopefully in April, we're going to run over to the brewery and have a beer with Trey at the Brownfield brewery that we have there. There's actually a brown ale that 3 Foot Brewing Company has there. So let's move to a big old elephant. And this is one that Chris and I worked with. The Board of Supervisors gave me a holler outside of the grant. Maybe Chris, talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you ran up against. Probably the first challenge was one of the public perceptions about the landfill. Maybe talk a little bit about that, and I'll kind of interject just as things pop available.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. There were actually several challenges with this. One being the price, which we can address shortly. But Trey's exactly right. There was a large contingent of people that were convinced that there was an old landfill on this site, and that the current mall sat directly on top of it. And as Trey shows you here, it made news back. These articles look like back in the 80s. And just to orient you to the area, there's a large creek that flows through there that has not always been clean. It's pretty dingy at times, and it's kind of a catch-all creek, which we're going to address that as we move into our courthouse project eventually. But the thought from a lot of people was that whole property that you see there in the middle was part of a landfill, and that's just not true. We did several different assessments. They did a ton of boring down, and there is zero evidence that there was ever a landfill on that property.
Well, yeah, Chris, just maybe to chime in a little bit, one thing so there's a lot of public perception issues going on with this. And look, a lot of that had to do with there were some people that were just not interested in the county taking on a big old elephant. And at the time, you know, Chris, how much were they? This was actually back in 2017 when maybe talk a little bit about the owners of the mall coming to you and saying, hey, I got a sweetheart deal for you.
Yeah, well, their sweetheart deal was really not a very good sweetheart deal. It was they bought themselves a piece of property as an investment property, and honestly, I'm not sure that they really knew exactly what they were getting themselves into. And they approached the county and wanted just an absorbent amount of money, and we backed away from it. And the backstory to this whole story is we have got to build a new courthouse. Our current courthouse is grossly underserves our population here in Lauderdale County. It's old, it's antiquated. There's some issues with it. So we started looking back, actually 2016, for a new home, and on again, off again relationship with this property, because we do want to improve our gateway to the city. But at the time, the property owner just wanted way too much money for it. And I circled back around to him and was able to negotiate a fair and equitable price for it because of the amount of work that it was going to take, which I know Laura from Snyder is going to address a lot of that stuff. But really, we got to a price point where we could justify it. So we purchased it in an effort to build our courthouse, and that's what's going to happen.
You know, one thing too is, so Chris called me up and said, hey, can you come take a look at this property and give us an evaluation? And part of the slides that you see here are some of the evaluations there. And obviously the first thing was, well, let's dispel any concerns about this property itself, just to kind of orient some folks on different things. This is I'd call it a vulnerable community here. We've got a church here. You've got some dilapidated houses. You got some smaller houses. You got a little bit of infringement in terms of commercial, light industrial, commercial, and then housing right next to it. Again, the housing authority, Meridian Housing Authority is right here. You've got a low-income housing area here. You also had actually an old Firestone as well here. So you got a Firestone that had some concerns. There was some people trying to say, "Oh my gosh, everything's it's groundwater's contaminated." You know, a lot of challenges sometimes is distilling some of the environmental terminology into something that a community member and the public can digest. And when people hear groundwater contamination, what they fail to understand sometimes is it may be this shallow 0 to 20 foot depth water that no one's drinking. Well, is that getting into my drinking water, or is that getting into Sawashi Creek? And so there was a lot of those challenges going on that were also up against. The other thing is, this is an old LabCorp facility. It used to be an old Winn-Dixie. The nice thing about that is doing the due diligence, which the county did take heed my advice. And as I said in several of the sessions before, always do a phase one before you take a donation or buy property. And that's really going out to the nonprofits and and to the cities and counties out there. But we were able to at least get some ideas of what the value of this property was, got some estimates that were woefully inadequate on what to do about the asbestos and demolition piece of this old mall. But this property here actually has pretty good bones to it. The HVAC, Chris, the HVAC still works.
Right.
Yeah. And you're repurposing that, right?
Right. Well, and we can talk about that as we move forward.
Okay. So from there, you know, again, going back to the dispelling the myth out there. If you go back and take that actual, this was a U.S. Army Corps of Engineers project. There's actually wells out here still. They're stick-up wells. There are actually 4 of them that were put out there trying to figure out what, why, and what. This was back in 1990s. I was in college, really not doing much of anything productive then, but certainly there was questions about that, and they've been sitting out there. The next thing, of course, is, it's full of asbestos. You got lots of problems there. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and move to the next slide and let Laura's video here speak to that. And then Laura, you can talk a little bit about the challenges of COVID and the challenges of a big old elephant and how to deal with all of that. So let me click this and hold on. Let me do this again.
The Village Fair Mall structure in Meridian, Mississippi was abandoned in the late 90s, and Lauderdale County chose to purchase the site for their new courthouse project. Snyder played a key role in being the prime contractor to abate and demolish the structure.
22nd Avenue coming off the Interstate 20 was the hub of retail back in the 70s and 80s. It was a classic mall site, and over time, slowly but surely, the mall fell out of favor and eventually closed.
Yep. Let's try that again.
Just the site for their new courthouse project. Snyder played a key role in being the prime contractor to abate and demolish the structure.
22nd Avenue coming off the Interstate 20 was the hub of retail back in the 70s and 80s. It was a classic mall site, and over time, slowly but surely, the mall fell out of favor and eventually closed. The county looked at this as the gateway into the city, and with so much redevelopment and revitalization happening, it really was something that the county decided they needed to step up and try to eliminate this blight that's right there at the gateway.
One reason this place is set vacant for so long is the potential cost what people thought it would cost to remove the asbestos and tear the building down. The building was so large, and there's many things very close to it, that we had to be extremely careful when we went into this.
The mall structure was a 400,000 square foot building that had spray applied fireproofing throughout all of the structural columns and structural beams, with a little bit of overspray on the metal roof deck. The fireproofing material contained an unacceptable amount of chrysotile, which is why it had to be abated prior to demolition.
Snyder has just been so helpful with tearing it down and making sure that the asbestos wasn't out in the air, so because we want to follow MDEQ's guidelines and make sure everybody's covered.
You got to be concerned with safety. You got to be concerned about public health, because we have some vulnerable populations over here. Once Snyder brought to us how they planned on addressing health and safety of their workers as well as the community, we felt like they had a really good plan to move forward, expedite this, and to get the job done.
Working with Snyder, the building being so large and so much asbestos in the building, we felt at ease with them being able to do that and not have to worry constantly about anything in the future that could possibly come up, because we know that they had it taken care of. Through that, we're able to move forward and build something new for the city and county.
Successfully and safely demolishing that structure and what's considered a hazard was challenging but very rewarding to be a part of.
All right, so that is the Snyder video on this. One thing I will say is I'm going to fire my makeup artist, and next time I'm planning to, you notice Laura, and I'm gonna kick it to you here in a second, but it was in July, was it not, or August, that we had that video, and it was not cool. And Laura did her video there for a second, and then lo and behold, when they put this little promo together, I noticed that she was inside, nice, cool, and all gussied up. So next time, Laura, I hope to have a little bit going on there, because I don't recognize that old fart. So tell us a little bit more about it, Laura.
Yes, sir. So in an effort not to duplicate some of the information that was provided in the video, I've given some highlights to speak on this morning with you all. The some of the challenges in kicking off the project in early spring of 2020 was weather, of course. I think some other folks here on the line are probably more familiar with rain and flooding issues there in Meridian and surrounding areas. So we did have some challenges with that. Fortunately, we did not need to go to the board to ask for additional time to complete the project within our contracted schedule, but we do have documentation of daily reports that were provided in our closeout documents that we had 9 working days, not including weekends, where we were pushing water out of our containments and making roof repairs and things of that nature to keep the project moving forward. So that was our challenges at that time of the year during kickoff. And then also, in addition to that, the structure was fairly unique on the way that it was constructed on the east end, J.C. Penney's, and then a central department store. I would say it was about 30% of the overall footprint of the entire mall was deteriorated enough that we found it to be unsafe to go in and do traditional abatement. Therefore, we got the blessing from MDEQ to go ahead and perform those sections under wet demolition methods to keep safety in mind. Also, as mentioned earlier, the perception on any demolition and abatement job can be challenging in getting feedback on social media that, you know, the structure should have been renovated. And I'm sure that Chris and Trey have seen that over the years as well. So nothing major on that, on this project in particular, but it was very evident whenever we started moving in that there were folks that wanted to cut into the fence as we had been cautioned and such. So we did have some times where we got some assistance from the county to repair the fencing, and then ultimately made the decision to go ahead and move all of our small tools and equipment into a job box inside of the mall structure to make an effort to limit the calls to the police department right across the road there. So that was, we did have some value loss there, but it was very well noted up front that that would be on us to make sure that our stuff stays on site. So also the utility accessibility, I'm not certain if the county did it or not, but some disconnects were made and water was still available on site, but there were some challenges with the size of the structure, running power cords and you know, temporary water lines to the particular area of the structure that we were working on. So maintaining those lines and keeping a safe work environment was pretty critical. And then also I saw that somebody had asked about recycling. You'll see here that our waste log that we provided is in tons. The ACM material 72, that's the fireproofing. Obviously, whenever you do fireproofing, you've got to do it wet the entire time, and that does create some additional tonnage there. The C&D did go to a local landfill. The structural steel went to a local scrap yard. And then the CMU block walls that were clean were left on site for reuse by the county with their crushing efforts. And then just to kind of note on here too, with the logistics of the project in regard to where we're located, obviously we utilized a lot of local resources in regard to trucking, rental equipment, scissor lifts and things of that nature. We obviously rented there local along with hotels and lodging for 30 plus employees throughout the course of 4 to 5 months there in Meridian from our team.
So Laura, what happened in March that impacted everyone on the planet?
Yes, in regard to COVID-19, we, you know, with the PPE that we utilize, you know, that's standard CDC guidelines for how we've all moved into handling COVID. So we were fortunate to not be completely shut down. You know, we did immediately go into pre-screening for every single employee prior to walking in. And so while it didn't completely shut us down, it did have some effects on us in pre-screening more than once per day, all employees.
Yep. So I see where Cindy's asking about recycling. So Chris, one thing that we did during this process was when we went out for bids on this, we did ask for several alternatives, because I think what the county was interested in is really looking at the value to this, and not just knock out the asbestos and demo the thing and be done with it. So we actually broke out and had in it as well what a cost would be to take as a bid alternative to take the concrete slab up and recycle it. And Chris, it was a fairly substantial number, but in terms of leveraging, tell us a little bit more about what your lessons learned from your other project, your small elephant piece, and now the big elephant. So in terms of the recycling piece, how's that playing out?
So part of those alternatives that we bid, and just like any local government, you want to give your local businesses a fair shot, the best that you can. And we have a very talented road manager that's a civil engineer, just a brilliant guy. And we have very competent crews. Part of the alternatives were, one was for us to tear down the building, and another was for us to just do the slab. Our local contractors, in the end, they didn't have the resources to get it done, and the decision was made to go with Snyder. And from that decision, it was also made to get Snyder to demo the building as well. And again, it wasn't because of an ability issue, it was just a resource issue. We didn't have the resources like Snyder did to get that done. But what we did have the resources to do was to take up the slab and store the slab. And so that's what our road crew did. I don't have those numbers with me, but there's a substantial, you can just imagine the size of that building, 400 and something thousand square foot, the amount of slab that is stockpiled. And what we'll do from there is we're going to turn around. We've got a company that's going to come in, that's going to grind all that up into usable slag. And that gravel is going to stay on site there for part of the foundation. We're going to have to dig down several feet and then rebuild our foundation for a 100,000 square foot courthouse complex. But also whatever is left over will be used for other applications, which saves the county taxpayer money, and it's using a renewable resource. And even out of that, we were able to, or we will be able to recycle more steel just from the slab.
So what we have here, I'm moving to the next slide. This is a picture of the opportunity zone for the city of Meridian. There's actually two. Another one is over by an old Kerr McGee site, the multi-state trust site, that we're talking with them about how to capitalize on that. But you can see that both the courthouse complex as well as the old landfill are within that open dump, I should say. It's not even a permitted landfill. It's just an open dump over time kind of thing. But, the plans are obviously to get the future home of the Lauderdale County complex. And Chris, I'm just going to kind of walk through this a little bit, but you can see, first off, Sawashi Creek, when I was in high school and growing up in the area, was a nappy place, but there's it looks pretty nice now, and it's got some nice riprap. There actually was a plan, part of that Corps of Engineers project was to make a weir and a water feature here. But because of landfills, that sort of has died off in that idea. But just to kind of give you an idea of what I believe the rendering has changed a little bit, Chris, but this was sort of the conceptual idea of this. The beauty of this courthouse complex is it establishes an institution there that's going to be around, so coming back and doing another commercial development on its own would be great, but this establishes a footprint. It also, with the security that would be involved in that, will also help with other uses. The county's looking at there's a right up here, I believe there's an old Fred's. Some of these out parcels, they're looking at what could be done there in terms of redevelopment, and then also just to kind of get an idea of what we're talking about here. I'll show this in a minute, but there's also how much was the grant that has been put together for the Sawashi Creek walking trail, Chris? Like $500,000, I believe.
Yeah, it's in that neighborhood. And Trey, if you'll give me just a second here, I can kind of tell you what's even gotten better about this design over the last week is the board has decided to take the courthouse, which is 100,000. Actually, it's going to be about 90,000 square foot building over 2 floors. It's pushed more to the west, which is closer to that neighborhood. The Winn-Dixie LabCorp building is going to be repurposed into a public service building, which will house our sheriffs, our fire department, Lima, etc. And then you come into Trey. Could you go? Oh, that's fine. That's fine.
That's good. All right.
Once the courthouse proper is moved more to the west and actually to the northwest, that gives an opportunity to potentially maximize more retail space and the Trey in your neck of the woods, Madison, the new development that Madison is doing, where it's more of a boulevard approach to where your boulevard ends up in your government building, but all of the property in and around it is retail space. And we're working with the city to zone for some good mixed use retail and just revitalize that. And so much so this conversation has changed. A year and a half, 2 years ago, the conversation was the ugly mall that's built on a landfill, nothing's ever going to happen to it. Now the naysayers of the community, they think that the board is making a horrible decision because now this is too valuable of a real estate to put a government building on. So it just shows you the shift of mindset over a year and a half. It went from a blighted community where the gateway was just going to be the most horrible thing ever to now, as we move forward to it, there's some criticism because maybe the board is taking some valuable real estate. So that just shows you a community mindset of now they're buying into the fact that this is worth something, which is I think a really good flip of conversation.
Yep. And so also Lauderdale County is not out there doing this all on their own. I mean, obviously this is within the city limits of Meridian, and they're actually, in fact, so the county's actually put together a brownfield assessment grant to come in. And this is part of the master plan that still the city's kind of working on. And with all these changes, you can see that. But the thing I want to point out is that there is some cohesion with this, and with Lauderdale County coming in with an assessment grant they submitted a week ago, I guess. There's lots of connections. There's the trail concept. Let me get my little laser pointer. The trail concept coming in and here and development. Still got a little bit of work in progress here. And obviously there is, but my point being is that the city of Meridian is a part of the process on this, with the county playing a major role in that piece. So with that, Chris, anything else you might want to point out, or is that good to go?
No, sir. Pending any questions from the audience, that's good for me.
All right. So we're now going to move over into my neck of the woods. And this is an opportunity zone here figure for Jackson. Jackson was a showcase community many moons ago for a brownfield grant. The Central Mississippi Planning and Development District, working with Primus Wheeler and his group with with the Jackson Medical Mall Foundation, has submitted their own brownfield assessment grant application, focusing primarily on the Jackson Medical Mall and all the great work they're doing. So to see how this cohesively works together, I'm going to show this next video about the the Mississippi Healthcare Corridor that was put into play a couple of years ago. And from that, we'll give Primus a little bit of time to do a shout out on Jackson and what all good things they're doing. I hope.
Deep in the heart of the New South lies opportunity. This is Jackson, Mississippi, at the crossroads of the country's fastest growing region. Jackson's dynamic fusion of commerce, hospitality, music, and diverse cultures is fueling a renaissance in this capital city. A 5-mile urban corridor linking 2 cross-continental interstate highways is a vital part of this transformation. Along this corridor are a unique combination of assets: 2 major nonprofit medical centers and an academic medical center with a large research and development portfolio. Respected colleges and universities hosting intercollegiate sports. Major state installations dedicated to public health, transportation, and public safety. At the center, anchoring the district, is the Jackson Medical Mall, a public-private partnership among 3 historic institutions: Jackson State University, Tougaloo College, and the University of Mississippi Medical Center. Further west along the corridor are 3 unexpected amenities: an 18-hole municipal golf course, the Jackson City Zoo, and an executive airport. These amazing assets are bordered by vibrant residential and commercial communities. The Mississippi Healthcare Corridor reimagines these assets as a single integrated district with unified streetscapes, lighting, and landscaping. A destination with a natural new urbanist flavor and a distinctive vibe. Now, you can imagine the possibilities. The finest medical care anywhere, with advanced resources, attracting patients from across the Southeast and beyond. A related biomedical research enterprise that fosters innovation in applied therapeutics and devices. A higher education brain trust, working with industry to bring solutions to modern challenges. Woodrow Wilson Boulevard is transformed with enhanced vehicular and pedestrian circulation, signage, planned green spaces, lighting, and landscaping improvements. It is no longer simply a boulevard. It is a concourse, a place where pathways come together. A place with a unique character, offering hotels, restaurants, and nightlife, with a hearty helping of the city's legendary hospitality. Places to live, shop, and play, in a community where a mix of cultures is working toward a common vision of shared success. This is the Mississippi Healthcare Corridor in Jackson, the way we will live tomorrow.
All right, so back in, I guess, 2013, the state of Mississippi created the Healthcare Incentives Act, or Healthcare Corridor Incentives Act, which basically provides some incentives out there for healthcare providers and research and development companies to come in and take advantage of some tax incentives. Because here's the thing, Mississippi, we have the biggest challenges when it comes to healthcare, and so there's a lot of research that's going on with all of our residents, and this gives an opportunity to do it in a place that is the hub for so much is what's going on here. And so that's what we got going. Primus, I'm gonna give everybody one more video. Our friend Walt Grayson, who, if you guys get a chance, go Google Walt Grayson, and he does wonderful. He's a weatherman, but he's a storyteller. And look, you'll find from Primus and some of the other folks on here, the one good thing we got going on Mississippi is that we can tell a story. And I think the thing too is that Walt Grayson has just got a way. He has a little thing where he goes down to different areas of Mississippi and tells their story. And so with that, I'm going to let him do a little bit of talking and for me to shut up and let him do his thing.
Inhale up. What you're looking at is a modern day medical miracle. It is a unique miracle in that this is one of a kind. Hopefully just the first of its kind, because many other cities across the nation are looking at it with the idea of imitating it. But this is the first, and it is phenomenally successful. The story of Jackson Medical Mall is best told from the present looking back, because it's rather unbelievable from the front end looking forward toward today. But right now, the mall is 100% occupied, and the retail strip mall across Woodrow Wilson from it is 100% occupied. Other retail and service establishments dot the landscape around the medical mall, and plans are being put into action to revitalize the residential areas adjacent to it. And properties being acquired for what will become a medical corridor from I-55 with access to Lakeland Drive and the Jackson International Airport, with the University Medical Center on the east, the medical mall in the middle, all the way to Hawkins Field Airport on the west. This medical corridor will incorporate research facilities and treatment centers and clinics, as well as communities within walking and bike riding distance to the facilities for the people who will be coming here to work in them. Now, how did this start? Well, it started with an offhand comment made by Dr. Aaron Shirley as he was eating lunch with Judge Reuben Anderson at Piccadilly Cafeteria, one of the few businesses still surviving in the old Jackson Mall back in 1995. At the time, Dr. Shirley's Jackson Hines Comprehensive Health Center was pinched for space, and looking around at the empty old retail mall, Dr. Shirley made a simple observation.
For something like Reuben, you know, we are struggling at Jackson Hines trying to find space. And we have all of this sitting here. Wouldn't it be nice if we could find a way to use some of this space? That's where it started.
What more logical solution to an obvious problem? And there was plenty of room for most any endeavor inside the nearly empty mall, as evidenced by the empty spaces in the parking lot just outside, as seen from this aerial photo taken in 1995. And compare that to today. And it's a good thing Dr. Shirley and Judge Anderson and Dr. Walter Conley of UMC, who also needed additional space for his facility, didn't comprehend the impossibility of doing what they had envisioned doing, taking an old retail mall on its deathbed and performing a medical miracle and bringing it back to life like it is today, with retail shops and clinics and classroom space and medical support space and state-of-the-art treatment centers. Because if they'd realized it couldn't be done, then it would have never happened like this.
I think that you can see this as dreams coming true, visions that were had years and years ago by some great leaders. And Dr. Shirley and Judge Reuben Anderson, Dr. Wally Conley. But today, these dreams have come true by the service it's providing, access to health care.
We also have almost every specialty that you could think of in our specialty clinics. You can get primary care. The University Medical Center expanded their primary care offering by joining with Jackson Hines Comprehensive Health Center. So that's a partnership. And there are lots of firsts that happen here. And so that was the first time that a community health center and a teaching hospital had joined forces to provide primary health care. And they both they coexist in the clinic. So anything you need, from dialysis to research and development, cancer treatment, primary care, specialty, cardiac surgeons, anything that you need, you can potentially get it here.
The clients in the medical mall have found the adjacency to other medical services in the mall is an important plus for their patients. And the location of the medical mall itself and the abundant nearby parking is a huge advantage for patients coming here.
we feel like it's good because it's right off the interstate. It's not very far. A lot of people know where UMC is, and that's only at most 2 miles away. So it's real convenient for our patients.
And it's not only patients who found the medical mall handy.
We have from the University Medical Center over 1,000 employees working at that location. Wow, what a place to work, because it is good, safe. We're locating off of our campus the support services like human resources, IT services. We have 400 IT professionals that are located at the Jackson Medical Mall, providing for the new electronic health record that we're installing here for our operation purposes.
But the success inside the mall would have never come about without the medical mall reaching out into the area around the mall. And that outreach was a part of the initial plan, not only to renovate the mall, but to revitalize the neighborhood as well.
I don't think the mall would have enjoyed the success it has if it had not, number one, embraced the community, and number two, showed the community that it was going to take the same prosperity that's inside the fence out to the community. So we started the process, just like we did inside the mall. We created a very safe and comfortable environment. Once people get here, they don't want to leave. And so we started to do the development outside the gate, and we're starting to put brand new businesses, new developments outside. And so now the phones are starting to ring, and developers are interested in starting to want to put their programs in place with ours.
That development in the surrounding community didn't happen spontaneously. It too is part of the ongoing plans and goals of the medical mall.
We started to acquire properties that were adjacent to the mall, and that's residential and business, and we started to clean up, renovate, tear down anything that wasn't appealing, and so that we could make sure that we had a plan to go forward with enough property to create opportunities for new developers who wanted to do business development and developers who wanted to get involved in housing and residential development.
There is this perception that this is not such a great area of town, but I think that's been one of the neatest things I've seen is the mall is really working hard to improve the area, to support businesses in this area, and there's just a lot of positive changes. They have a lot of interest in the community, and they support positive changes in the community. So I really feel like it's a win-win situation.
Slowly but surely, folks are recognizing that there's a new spirit going on here, and that we are in the business of changing this place one street at a time, one house at a time.
With the established success inside the Jackson Medical Mall and the improvements already in place in the planning stages in the surrounding community, the vision for the future is the medical corridor.
At one end, you have the Academic Medical Center providing for the academic, clinical, and research opportunities for the state of Mississippi and its citizens. But at the other end of this medical corridor, you have a business airport. This all leads back to the center point of the whole corridor. The center point is the Jackson Medical Mall. It's sort of it's the anchor. It's what is creating the energy for development all throughout this corridor here.
The only reason there's any thoughts of developing something as ambitious as a medical corridor is because Jackson Medical Mall proved impossible ideas can happen.
If this experience had not proven that something like this would happen or could happen, that I don't think that discussion would be going on today.
It's like the medical mall is the heart of the whole area. And the vision that grew out of a chance remark over lunch one day has given the area a heart transplant and changed its focus from looking back to the good old days of the past
Good job. Turn it back.
to looking forward to the great days of the future yet to come.
All right. So I noticed, Primus, that you said at one point tackling this one street, one parcel, one bite at a time. Is that probably the way we look at this and look at the special thing going on here in the capital of Mississippi. So with that, Primus, I'm gonna do a new share. Actually, I'm gonna unshare and let you take us through the new master plan and whatever you want to share on this, because it's a pretty special project here, and then we'll go from there. So Primus, why don't you give us a little bit of idea of particularly what CMPDD, the Central Mississippi Planning and Development District, has done for you guys just this year. In fact, if you saw the screen I had just a minute ago, you will see the master plan. So from there, Primus, share a little more information. Give us the inside track on this.
Thanks a lot, Trey, and good morning again to everybody. It's an exciting time to see all these great things happening around Mississippi, and I'll tell you, this project was definitely one of biting the elephant one bite at a time. And as you start to think about redeveloping a piece of property, the idea comes: do we want to destruct it, tear it down, and start over new, or do we start to try to rehab what's already there? And Dr. Shirley and our original founders would have it no other way. The shopping mall in Mississippi, the Jackson Mall, was the first shopping mall built in Mississippi, so it has a lot of history and a lot of heritage around it. And so we wanted to make sure that we had we kept some of that history and that heritage in place. So over the last 20 years, we have totally rehabbed this property and a lot of property around it, built some other things around it, some hodgepodge here and there, and just building things as the community said it needed: new different programs, grocery stores, some shopping, retail facilities, etc. But we never had a cohesive plan. So we decided that we would shop around to see who could actually help us develop a real master plan. Because sometimes when you're working in a silo, you kind of do what the next problem dictates being done. But when you have a plan, and I always tell folks there's a lot of ways to get to Memphis, but it's always the best way to get to Memphis. And so having a plan means that you'll know exactly how you're going to get there, and when you have gotten there, you will know you're there. And so Central Mississippi Planning and Development District was the organization that we chose to do the plan for us. And so we are actually just getting that plan finished. It's been approved by our board, and it's a huge opportunity for us to redevelop this community one house at a time, one street at a time. And as you look at the some of the pieces, this is kind of the gateway into the mall, and I'm going to let the presentation catch up with me.
Yeah, let me do a little bit of figures that Internet Explorer is going to be this way with me right now. Hold on one second. You got to eat these projects one bite at a time as well on this piece. Let me, hold on.
Your problem is using Internet Explorer.
I know. Well, look, we can talk to my GIS guy, my IT guy on that. Give me just a second. Story. All right. Here we go. All right. I think we got our technical difficulties squared away. So everybody seeing the seeing my screen? If it'll come on, baby.
Yes.
All right. So master plan. There you go. So this, and what we will do, by the way, this web address, we will have that available so you guys can come take a look at this as well and see what great things are going on here. Obviously, you got the history of the mall, so keep on going and tell me. You just keep telling me, Primus. I'll drive the boat a little bit.
Okay. All right. Well, we actually as I said earlier, this was the first shopping mall built in Mississippi. It opened in 1970, and I can tell you, I was a college student here back when it opened, and just to come to the mall and see all the cars. I mean, they parked deep into the neighborhood at Christmas time. It was the place to be. Everybody came from all over the state of Mississippi, and you'll see all of some shots of the old place. But Dr. Shirley was the vision behind the program, and he is passed on, but his legacy lives much past his prime, and he and Dr. Anderson wanted to make sure that something happened with this building. So you can see the building behind us, behind you there, and we started this thing of, do we tear it down? Do we actually try to rehab what's here? And I can tell you that it was not a small undertaking, but the community would not have it torn down. And we really engaged the community in this process of redeveloping. And so we've spent approximately $100 million rehabbing this property and getting it up to the place where it's a first-class facility. Well, we've changed the vision over the years to involving, how do you do healthcare using technology and artists and intersecting all those things together to make sure the community development happened at the same time. And you can see the parking lot is always full of cars. This was a winter month, and we service about 5,000 visitors per day to the place. It looks like a little city most of the times, and it serves as an anchor. Not only do people come here for healthcare, we have folks coming to walk around the place, to get their exercise in the morning. We have folks come for their meetings and they use the space for small gatherings. It's kind of a community center. And we took some time to make sure that we did some development in the community. You see the housing there, some of the older stuff, and we built our own community park so kids would have a safe place to play. And we knew that the building itself was just not going to be what it took to save the community. And this old building that you see there, that's what happens to a neighborhood when nobody cares about it anymore. And so we acquired most of those properties. That the Mall Foundation probably owns about 150 of those properties now that we've torn down and created green space, so we can start the redevelopment process from the neighborhood back toward us. And the property is just a multi-purpose program. Lots of healthcare goes on here. We're developing the neighborhoods with housing, and we are trying to create a built community now, so that when you come to the area, you can come by bicycle, you come by public transportation, you can use the space around you to live, work, and play, and not just come for a transaction. So we're really thinking about how do you take this anchor and make the community a much better place to live in. And so Central Mississippi Planning and Development District has actually done that for us. And if you've been to the mall here, you see that we have a huge fence around it, and you have to take it back from the bad folks when you first get started. But it's our plan over time to repurpose that fence with some greenery and some landscaping, so that we don't have to do that. Because whenever you have a fence up, that means you're trying to keep something out or kind of keep something in, and that's not our purpose. We want to blend into the community and be a part of it. This is a picture of some of the housing that we've developed over time. We have about 25 of those new townhomes that you see there built into the community, and they all look the same. But our plan going forward is to create communities that have front yards and backyards and porches, so that folks can sit out and be a part of the community and not put fences around their homes, and start to connect again. And we're doing things on Baylor Avenue all around us. We're buying up all the property around us, some of it having been donated to us, and we're taking those existing properties that are there, and we're going to repurpose those into healthcare supporting projects, restaurants, and things that the community will use. And it'll be all walkable, so you can walk from the mall to those properties and back and forth, and not have to use your car so much to get around. So our whole thought with this master plan was, how do you make sure that the community feels safe and feel a part of what you're doing? And so that's the way we encourage Central Mississippi Planning to start to work with us on it. And they've actually walked through the process with us and got the community involved, our board is involved, our advisory groups involved. And so we're now, we're set with a plan that will take us about 10 years out from where we are now in 3 phases: the early phase, mid-range phase, and then the long-range phase. And so we're trying to figure out how to get partners in place. But when you start to doing development early on, most folks don't want to come and develop into an urban area, and because they're afraid they're going to lose the money, and et cetera, et cetera. So you have to get it jump started. So we jump started. So now the developers are actually calling, and we actually have a plan that we can give them that they can start to work and do their development around at this point. And when you don't have a plan and developers come, they develop what they want. when you have a plan to develop what you want, and what we want is what the community wants. So you'll see some of our ideas of what we're going to do with this community as we go forward. And I can assure you that that you don't get this far into a process without actually owning the property around you. And with that goes a lot of problems sometimes. You got to maintain that property until you get the funding in place to actually repurpose it. So we're excited about this opportunity, and we thank Trey for involving us in this process, because we have a lot of old stuff that we got to repurpose, and it's going to take a lot of money to make sure it's clean and stable, so that our folks will be able to use it going forward.
So Promise, one of the, and I've got this on the slide here, is, and this is also a part of the story map. This is the old Hood facility. Talk a little bit about, some of the ideas on it. And it is a brownfield, and it's been around for a long time. And Promise and I, many moons ago, had community meetings where people were not trusting the folks involved, and that's a key piece of this is community engagement and making sure that happens. So the plan is to take this and to revitalize this well, first obviously assess it, and then from there revitalize.
You're absolutely right. It's a property. It used to be the mainstay. I think this community was actually built around an old furniture manufacturing plant there. Almost anybody you knew who lived in Jackson at some point actually worked at that property, and was actually involved in taking care of that, in taking care of it. And as we've gone through that process, the over time, the first manufacturing place went out of business, and as it went out of business, it left a huge, big old piece of property there that's grown up and overgrown, and it is nothing now but an eyesore. So our plan is to repurpose that into a piece of property that will actually be a piece that has residential. It has some businesses in it. It'll have a safe place for kids to play. It's going to be a total community that has schools, grocery stores. It will be totally repurposed. It'll be a kind of a city or community within itself. And we're looking forward to the opportunity to get that thing cleaned up and get it back in place. Most developers don't want to touch it because the community has such a bad appetite for something bad is going to happen there, because it's a brownfield. It's got all these bad asbestos, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so we got to help the community understand that it can be cleaned up. It can be a safe place to be built, so we can actually have businesses and homes and playgrounds, et cetera, so kids and families can enjoy it again.
So how you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And so we've got about 2 minutes. And I am trying to get on my chat. Have we got any questions? Or do we just do such a bang up job that everybody's going, I'm sold on Jackson and I'm sold on Lauderdale County?
I think you've done a bang up job.
Well, thank you, Olga. All right. Well, listen, this will be on video soon. Melissa, you got any parting, I guess, anything you want to point out to anybody in the next session, that kind of stuff?
Sure. So today is what's today? I don't even know what day it is, right? Okay. So yeah, thank you to everybody speaking and participating this morning. Hopefully you all got a lot of information out of this, great information. We will be providing the presentation, the slides. We can update Sked with the links that Trey mentioned, the YouTube links. We can go ahead and do that today. And then after the conference, we have the presentation recorded and also the slides available. So feel free to look at that. And if you have any other questions, I'm sure Trey or any of the speakers are available afterwards. Just let us know.
All right.
And then today is Wednesday. The next session is at 9:30, and it's the RLF grants. And Cindy Nolan, Derek Street, Stephanie Height, and Robert Hodges will be there. So.
All right. Well, thank you to my speakers, and look forward to more good times going on in eating elephants. Thank you, guys, folks. Take care.
All right. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank you.